Okay, so my first question is, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness, I will give you the abbreviated version.
Mhm.
After spending over 20 years in commercial insurance sales, I walked away from that job, and about 3 years ago, I decided to start writing. And what was compelling me to start writing was I was starting to get in touch with my feelings. I was starting to acknowledge my emotions. I stopped running from what I was feeling, and as I did that, I could feel it bubbling up, and it was almost as if I had to put a pen in my hand and get hold of some paper and start writing down these crazy thoughts and ideas. Well, long story short, those crazy thoughts and ideas became the book You Can't Eat Love, which was published in January of 2021. And currently, I'm working on The Journey from Failing to Healing, which is actually the backstory of how I really started embracing all those emotions and feelings and naming them and stopped running from them. And that'll be published probably mid-October at the very latest. And then from that work, I'm working on a book, and this is a crazy title, called What Color Is My Shirt? And for me, I had to do all this other work in order to see what color is my shirt. And for anybody who's wondering what that is about, let me ask a question. How many times have you expressed to someone that you were feeling whatever, sad, happy, whatever, and they said to you, you shouldn't feel that way?
A lot of times.
And I was pondering that, and actually I was having a conversation with somebody else, and I said, me telling you that I'm feeling something, or you telling me that you're feeling something, and I say to you, you shouldn't feel that way, that is very much like telling you that your yellow shirt is green. Because honestly, how you feel is how you feel, isn't that right?
Yes.
And then from there, I started running with this idea because I recognized that so many times, especially when I was growing up, so many times I would be expressing how I was feeling and I would be told you shouldn't feel that way. And that led to this kind of confusion. So then we fast forward this many years, and I'm starting to get in touch with my emotions. I'm starting to own my emotions. I'm starting to sit in my feelings and not running from them like I was. And I was thinking, who was it that died and left all these people in charge of deciding what I do and do not feel? And so my shorthand for that is, your feelings are your feelings and no one else gets a vote. And so one of the things that I am just so amazed about you is that you are confronting these issues head on, and you're bringing an awareness to people about how younger people, well, and even adults, are being told by society and whatever that their feelings are not important, that they need to fall into these norms, into these social norms, or into these cultural norms, and deny what they're really feeling. And I don't know about you, but what I discovered about myself was that doing that led to other problems for me, because our feelings are going to come out sideways.
Yeah.
And part of what I did to release that stress of what I was really feeling and what I was being told I should be feeling, part of what I used to do is I would rip my fingernails almost down to the quick, or I would eat because I could handle the shame that I felt from eating. I knew how to do shame. I could do shame with one hand tied behind my back, standing on one leg. It was
Mm-hmm.
the other stuff I struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started getting better able to express and feel my emotions and own my emotions, then I got stronger in being able to say to somebody, this is how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And just put a period at the end of that sentence.
Okay, yeah. My next question is, I know you already talked about this a little bit, but is there anything else you'd like to add about your books, You Can't Eat Love and What Color Is My Shirt?
Well, the main thing that I would like to add to that is these are really me talking to you
Mm-hmm.
and helping you to understand, you're not alone, you're not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Other people have these thoughts, and these are things that I have done. These are thoughts and ideas that I have had. These I've actually followed through on them, and this is how I live my life now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not I sat in a classroom and studied all of this stuff. I do have a background with a master's in public health,
Mm-hmm.
but truthfully, my words and the things that I've learned come from living my life
Mm-hmm.
and observing. So
Yes.
I've had people tell me that reading my books feels as if they're sitting down with somebody over a cup of coffee and having a conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that because to be able to connect with somebody that I've never ever met and know that I did connect with them is so rewarding, because that's what I want. I want you to feel as if we are having a conversation just as we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you walk away, you feel uplifted. You don't feel beaten down.
Yeah.
Instead, you say, you know what? I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if I mess up, it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. My next question is, if there's anything else you'd like to add about like how you got involved in the mental health field with writing these books. I know you talked about your journey a little bit, but is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, when the pandemic happened, one of the things that I started observing in myself, and then I started observing in the world at large, is how many people were feeling so isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch the news and you hear about, the shootings and all the other stuff, and you also hear about the violence and things like that. And I started saying to myself, what is really going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And what was brought to my mind was a comment that my brother-in-law made one time. He's a paramedic, and he
Mm-hmm.
said he was sent out on a call to a teenager who had been cutting themselves, and the parents called, the first responders, and he responded to the call. And the child said to the paramedics, I just want somebody to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that really stuck with me,
Mm-hmm.
because truthfully, I started recognizing in myself, I want somebody to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have you encountered somebody that, given the opportunity, all they do is talk and
A
they
lot of
don't take a breath?
Yeah, a lot of times.
Now, those people are desperate to be heard. And as I started observing the changes in myself, I started recognizing I'm desperate to be heard. I've been desperate to be heard for a long time. So what I did to help myself was I started having written conversations with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Why written? Well, that way they get out of my head onto paper and I can move on. And I do have a dialogue with myself, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't reread it,
Mm-hmm.
because in real life, when we are having a conversation, we're not recording it.
Yeah.
So when the conversation ends, it ends. And that's why I don't reread anything that I write. So as I'm observing, and hearing what people are saying during the pandemic and then even subsequent to it, I'm recognizing, what? Mental health is such a huge piece, but really and truly not so much from the medical community, as from just society as a whole. Do we have the time to listen? And who is it that we're really not listening to? And what I circled back around to is we're really not hearing students.
Yeah.
We're not hearing, the little kids, and we're not hearing the young adults. And I tell you what, if I hear one more person tell me that young people are resilient, I think I'm going to get a trash can full of water balloons and I'm going to throw them at them. Because honestly, when we think of resilience, we think it's going to bounce back, right? And we expect things to bounce back to where they were, to be in the same form that they were before they were crushed. To better explain, this is how my mind works. To better explain this, memory foam mattresses, you're familiar with those, right? You push on them, it leaves an indentation, correct?
Yeah.
And then a short period of time later, it returns to where it was.
Yeah.
Are you a memory foam mattress?
No.
When we talk about memory foam mattresses, we talk about resilience, how that mattress is resilient. It can return to its original shape. But you've already told me you are not a memory foam mattress.
Yeah.
So all of these things that happen to us, all of these things, especially to the young people, the students, they were totally 100% out of their control, right?
Yes.
You had all these adults telling you all these things that you had to do, you should do. Oh my gosh, the world of shoulds was raining down at that time, even now today. And then you're expected to return to what you were before the craziness started. Do you feel that you're a different person now than you were before?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you a memory foam mattress?
No.
So did you return to the person that you were before all this craziness started?
No.
And it was your aha moment during this craziness that you recognized who was not being heard. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And you decided to do something about that.
Yeah.
So in my mind, if we as adults can stop expecting young people to be a memory foam mattress, I think we can begin to have honest conversations and help young people to embrace and feel and express their emotions in a safe environment, because that's where you learn. That's where you learn how to do addition and subtraction. Isn't that right?
Yes.
You master the skill of addition, subtraction, the alphabet, the phonics, and all of that stuff in a safe environment, correct?
Yes.
Let's start mastering feeling in a safe environment so that when we are out in the world, we have the tools and the skills, not just the math and the literature, but we've got the real tools and skills so that we can really contribute, not just to society at large, but to our families. And we can begin to see a decrease in dysfunction. And we can begin to see a decrease in people screaming, I want to be heard.
Yes, definitely. So my next question is to you, what is mental and emotional well-being and why is it important?
Well, to me, mental and emotional well-being means that you wake up each day and you look forward to the day. And you're not thinking about the coulda beens, you're not thinking about the woulda beens, you're not thinking about the shoulda beens. You know that when you encounter people that they're going to be interested in you, when you encounter people, you're going to be interested in them. You know that you're going to be able to hear somebody else's troubles and struggles and all of that without feeling as if you need to interrupt them to tell them about, how you're one-upping their trouble and their struggle. Because I'm sure you know people who love to one-up.
Yes.
So, being mentally healthy and emotionally healthy to me means that we're not seeking outside of ourselves that which is already inside of ourselves.
Yes.
But we have people around us who are also as healthy mentally and emotionally as we are, so that we can share in an even and balanced environment. Now, that doesn't mean that it's always 50-50, because just like with any relationship, truthfully, it should be 100-100. Everybody is giving 100% all the time. But there are those times when one party's got to carry more than 100% because the other party is unable to.
Yes.
So when we are mentally and emotionally healthy, then it's okay if we carry a heavier burden, because we know that we will be able to go to somebody else when we need part of our burden carried, and they will be helping us, instead of looking at, well, what's in this for me?
Yes.
Waiting for the person to take a breath so they can jump in with, well, you know what, my whatever is bigger than your whatever, my tragedy is bigger than your tragedy. Instead, we can sit there and we can listen. So this is what happened. Can you tell me more about it? I can only imagine how you're feeling. Really? Oh, my goodness. Oh, can you tell me more? And we're not feeling that anxiety that the spotlight's not on us.
Yes. My next question is, what do you think are some ways the mental health care system can be improved based on your experiences with it?
Considering how many years of therapy I have done, and all I did was feel more anxious and aggravated, I think that if we can help people to learn to have conversations with themselves, and if we can identify events in the past to understand what's happening in the present, rather than focusing on the past and trying to deal with the present, I think that we can, truthfully, if I'm really, really honest about this, the number one thing that the mental health segment could do is teach people, show people how to have an honest conversation. And how to have an honest conversation with themselves, and give them the tools. Because honestly, if you're meeting with a mental health provider, you're meeting for maybe 50 minutes once a week. Well, what happens all the other time? What I found to be most beneficial is that writing. And I do that every single day, because what I know I wanted was, I wanted someone to listen. And what I discovered was, people get tired of hearing you talk about the same thing over and over again. They get exhausted from it because they've got their own things that they want to talk about. And if you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning and you're wanting to talk about that, well, who else is awake at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning? Nobody. Or if you want to talk about it at 10 o'clock in the morning, who else is awake? Nobody, right? Or, so if the mental health segment would be teaching people how to have those written conversations, come up with some prompts, both, encouraging prompts and deep thinking prompts, so that people can start getting used to having those conversations and recognize there's always somebody available to listen. And what I call that, and I address this a whole lot in the book, You Can't Eat Love, your very best friend in the whole wide world. And if you go look in the mirror, you can see your very best friend in the whole wide world. And they're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and not just 50 minutes once a week.
Definitely. My next question is, what are some of the most prevalent mental health misconceptions that you've encountered?
That there's something wrong with you and you're broken if you seek help for any kind of mental health issues. The stigma of you being broken, the shame that the family can rain down on somebody who is seeking help, just the shame in general. If you comment to someone, I think that I want help, it's met with, well, what's wrong with you? There are other people who are worse off than you are. I don't know what your problem is. You just got to buck up. You need to, get over it. Oh my gosh, get over it. So I believe not that we need to be speaking out and saying, going to a therapist is the world's greatest thing. No. What I think that the message we need to be delivering is your mental health, your emotional well-being is the number one key to you living your best life.
Yes.
If you are ill, if you break a bone, you go to a doctor, you get the bone set. If you have an ear infection, you go to the doctor, you get medicine. If you come from a family of dysfunction or generational dysfunction, as do many people, the doctor that you're going to doesn't know what they're doing, so you need to go to a different doctor. And if we can remove the shame and the stigma from getting help from a proper doctor, then I believe that we can really start moving forward. But it's going to start really and truly in the home.
Yeah.
That when parents, when siblings, when grandparents can recognize, you know what, maybe they are having a problem. Maybe it is something that I cannot help them with. Just as parents get tutors for math and for reading and all of those kinds of things, there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a tutor for your child or your partner or whoever if they're struggling with their mental and emotional health. That's all it is. It's a tutor. That's it.
Yes, definitely. My next question was, how have you encountered the mental health stigma in society, and how do you believe this stigma can be combated moving forward?
Well, for me personally, I refused to tell people that I was actually going to a therapist. I would make up all kinds of stories about where I was going. I didn't tell people because I didn't want to be shamed. So as I already said, if we can remove the stigma by saying, you know what, there are just things I can't help you with. So yes, you do need to go to an expert and get some help. Let's make it not so much about being broken as it is about wellness. If we can focus on it all from a wellness perspective instead of a brokenness perspective, I believe that we can actually move it forward. We want to be emotionally well. We want to be mentally well. Let's focus on it from a wellness perspective. The diet and exercise and certain veggies and all those kinds of things are prescribed for physical wellness. Okay, well, what does mental and emotional wellness look like? To me, emotional wellness looks like being able to freely express what you're really feeling without something coming back. And if we can focus on it from a wellness perspective instead of a broken perspective, I believe that we can really start moving it forward and get it out of the deep, dark closets and people saying, I don't want to tell anybody I'm going to a therapist. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because the more that we keep stuff in the shadows, the more powerful the shadows become. And honestly, isn't that where we've got mental and emotional health right now, in the shadows? If you admit to an emotional or mental health problem, there's something wrong with you. It's almost like leprosy.
Yeah.
Back in the olden days, how they put the lepers, in the colonies and set them aside. I can still remember when we lived in Venezuela, we went to a beach one time, and there was an island that you could see. It was maybe 10, 15 miles off the coast, but you could see this island, and that was where lepers lived.
Mm-hmm.
And that's almost what we've done with people, especially young people who admit to having a mental or an emotional problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're sticking them on an island. We're shaming them. We're setting them apart. We're not embracing them and saying, you know what, I struggle too.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, when you hear about somebody else's struggle, can't you empathize most of the time?
Yes.
And how powerful is it when we start empathizing with each other and saying, you know what, I've had that thought before.
Yeah, definitely.
And then people start feeling validated. Really? I'm not the only one?
Mm-hmm.
Really? I thought about, cutting myself. Really? I thought about, bashing myself. I've thought about these things. I've thought about, hitting somebody, hurting somebody, breaking something. Really? You've thought that too? Then we can get it out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
Stop treating them like lepers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's focus on wellness and not illness.
Yes, definitely. My last question is, how do you think that we can get teens to engage in this conversation and to seek help if needed?
Well, as I've already said several times, I believe that the key to getting young people to start having the conversation is giving them the tools so that they feel heard. Mm-hmm. And the first person that they can start listening to or talking to is themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they can start getting the thoughts and the feelings out of their heads and onto that paper, then things start calming down.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, adults need to learn that how somebody feels, especially teens, how they feel is how they feel. Nobody else gets a vote. Stop shoulding all over them. Well, you shouldn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. Feelings are not logical. So one of the things that I was pondering was, how can counselors and other teachers and things come up with a code word system in order to check in with teens?
Mm-hmm.
You doing okay? And if they answered yes, then, ask another question, where if you get a weird answer, they're really not doing okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, let's just pretend for a moment. You and I were meeting in a hall and, in school, and we're passing, and I say, you doing okay? And you say yes. And I said, well, you know what? I really like your yellow shirt. And you say to me, well, it's green. I go, oh, okay. Well, that cues me in that you're really not doing okay. So then I could ask you, well, have you talked to this friend, or, and have another name for another friend? Have you talked to either one of these friends lately? Well, no, I'm going to talk to, whichever friend, and have that be the cue back to the adult that either you're going to have a written conversation or you need to have a verbal conversation with that safe adult.
Yeah.
Because especially for teens, we don't want anybody to be put in a position of vulnerability.
Yeah.
It's always, there's always a power struggle. And if anybody else sees a chink in the armor, they're going to take advantage of it. Mm-hmm. So if we can come up with this code language, so that the adult who cares can hear, yes, I need some help. I need somebody to talk to. Well, then they can take action.
Yeah.
Without anybody around knowing that the teen is in trouble and that they are going to be going and getting some help, just having a conversation.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, where we can start is in the support system around teens, that we establish a safe way to communicate, to let safe adults know that I need your help.
Yeah.
without exposing them, without letting the rest of the world know I'm struggling right now. Now, I'm not saying that the world doesn't need to know you're struggling. It's just that your peers don't necessarily need to know you're struggling unless you want to share that with your peers.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you've got those people who are looking for chinks in the armor, and they'll take full advantage of it, which simply adds another layer to this whole problem.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. That was my last question.